Dear brothers and sisters, as we all gather together in many, many different parts of the world, this is a time to focus on what kind of life we should be leading so that the purpose for which we all came into this world would be fulfilled. When we look at our lives, many people live for survival. We want to provide for ourselves, we want to provide for our families, we want housing, we want clothing, we want food, and for the physical survival of our being is why we make tremendous efforts to either go through schooling or learn some trades and then be in the workforce so that we can make enough money and live in this physical world. And as our life goes on, times too come in our life, and those are times which are difficult for us, times when either we lose something that we have, times when we might physically lose a relative, times which are difficult for us. And it's in those times that we start to wonder, what is it that we should have done? Are we going to be happy? Or is life going to bring one difficulty after another in our life? And as we start to ponder on the question of who we are and why we are here and what the purpose of this existence is, then we realize that for us to be able to be happy and joyous, for us to be able to truly know ourselves and find a connection with the Creator, we need to sit in silence. Whether you call it meditation, whether you call it inversion. These are techniques which have been talked about by great saints and mystics. And so as we sit and meditate, and as we connect with the divine power within ourselves, we are peaceful, we are calm. And as we find that calmness within ourselves, and then when we look at the world outside, we wonder as to when everyone else would be calm too. We find there's turmoil in the world. We find people are not peaceful. We find people are going through difficulties. And we start to wonder, are we going to be able to live in times which will be peaceful for everyone else? And when we start to ponder on that question, we then start to think about what can we do to make our life peaceful and that of others peaceful too. And when we look at the whole world, it looks like a monumental job. There's a very interesting folklore which comes from the past. This talks about a person who was 90 years old. He used to live on one side of a very big mountain chain. These mountains were very high and were very wide. And all his life, he had to go to the other side of the mountain. He lived on the north side of the mountain, he had to go to the south side to get things. So all his life, he would travel around the mountain and go to the other side, and take him a few months to get there and get whatever he needed and bring it back. And so as his life went on, he started to realize the difficulty that this was bringing to him. Because it was a very wide mountain, it was very high, and for him to get from one side to the other was very, very difficult. Now, as he'd grown old, he was 90 years old, he had his children, and they had their children, and some of them had their children. So he called the whole family together to see if they can find a solution. And he told them that all my life I've been spending many days just to get to the other side, because we have work there, and then bring things home here. And we need to figure out a way by which we can get there quickly. And so they talked, and someone said, oh, can't we just make a hole in the mountain? And at that time they didn't have the technology of dynamites and things, so they could not make any tunnels. And so they put that advice down, and they're talking. And finally they all agreed on one solution. They all said, let us go to the top of the mountain and take out the dirt and the stones and the rocks that are there. And slowly, as we take the dirt and the rocks and the stones out from the top, the height is going to get less and less and less. So the person who was 90 years old, and his children and his grandchildren, some of his great-grandchildren, they all got together. And now they got buckets. And they got these poles, and they had buckets on both sides, and they filled it with dirt from the top of the mountain. And they're then coming down from the mountain. It took them a few days. And they bring all the dirt and all the stones and all the rocks that they collected in the buckets, take it to the sea and put it in the sea. Now they did this one time, they did another time, they did another time. And one of the persons who were living by the sea saw this whole family of an elderly gentleman and some other middle-aged people and some kids coming and bringing buckets and putting the dirt and the stones in the sea. So he asked them, what are you doing? And the 90-year-old man told them that we are trying to bring the top of the mountain down so that one day it would be leveled and the road can be made from this side to the other side. So that it will be easy for people to go from one side to another. And so the person who was by the seaside said, you think you're going to be able to do it? You are 90 years old already, and you think it'll make a difference? And then the elderly gentleman said, you see, it's not only me here. By being able to start this process, I'm training my children and my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren to learn that as we do little things, big things can be done. Because the mountain is not going to be growing. It is settled for a long time. And slowly, as we get the top of the mountain down, then we will be able to get to a state where things will be flattened, so some kind of a road can be built, and people can go from one side of the mountain to the other without having to go all the way around it. So this was the time before the tunneling started to come into play. And as we start to think about this folk tale, what is very interesting is that when we take up monumental projects, when we want to do things which are very big, we can accomplish them as we start little by little. And so as we start to look at our lives, and as we start to look at the monumental job of trying to find out who we are, where did we come from, where are we going to go when our time in this physical world is over, and what is our relationship with the Creator. These are monumental jobs. These take tremendous effort to be able to get to our goals. But if we look at the job, how are we going to meet the Creator who created everything? Not only this world, but many, many other worlds. How do we learn about the Creator? Where do we get information about the Creator? If we start to think about that, then we think, oh, it's so difficult. How are we going to find the Creator? But then as we take little steps, as we take one step after another, after another, after another, first when we have an inkling to know about the Creator, we all dig into our faiths. We read the writings of the great saints and mystics, and then we try to put into practice what we've learned. Our scriptures are telling us that God, the Creator, is in the creation. That the macrocosm is in the microcosm. That in the creation, God is present in each and every one. And so when we read that, then we try to understand that. And then we try to understand at the mental level, how can God be present in each and every one of us? Because when we look at the intellectual level, we just see individuals. We see people, we see animals, we see birds, we see fish. To us, they're all individuals. They all seem to be different. Even our families, our spouses, our parents, our children, their characteristics are different, their behaviors are different. And they all seem to be different, and let alone others that we meet, whether they are in our neighborhood or places of work. And so we in this physical world are so used to seeing an individual here, one thing here, nothing here, nothing here, nothing here. And then for us to be able to understand that God is in each and every one of us gets to be difficult. But then you start to hear about mechanisms by which God the Creator was experienced by the great saints and mystics of the past. And these saints and mystics came in all traditions. Whether these were traditions that started in the East, whether these were traditions that started in the West, saints and mystics have all talked about their relationship with God, their experience of God. And when we dig into those experiences, we realize that all of them happened in silence. When these great saints and mystics sat by themselves in silence, when they took their attention away from the world outside and focused it within themselves. And as they focused their attention within themselves, they then started to connect with what is called the creative power, the holy word, the Naam or the Shabd, the divine light and sound of God. And this divine light and sound of God was experienced by these great saints and mystics. And they talk about them. They talk about regions of love, they talk about regions of peace, they talk about regions of joy, and they all talk about being in the presence of God. The journey to meet God is called the spiritual journey. That journey is not a physical journey. It's not a journey in which we need an airplane to go from one place to another. It's a journey of a soul. It's a journey in which we realize our soul. And so the techniques, whether these are called meditation, whether they are called inversion, whether they're called sitting in silence, whether they're called praying with attention, these are very, very similar techniques. These techniques ask us to take our attention away from the world outside and step by step, one by one, little by little, on a daily basis, try to go on the spiritual journey. These techniques ask us to weed out the difficulties that we are having in trying to be ethical. These techniques tell us that we need to put ethics into our being. We need to be loving, we need to be caring, we need to be of selfless service, we need to be non-violent, we need to be truthful, we need to live with humility. And so these traits need to be inculcated in our life. So a spiritual diary, a diary by which we can track how we're living ethically, is one in which we look at the difficulties that are coming in our lives from being perfected in being very, very ethical. And so whatever problems we have, we try to track them and we count them on a daily basis. At the end of the day, we take a few minutes and think about what we did all day. Generally, when we want to meditate, we close our eyes, we sit in silence. Now, if we close our eyes and we are still bombarded by thoughts, whether they be about the past, as to what happened in the last few days, whether they be about the future, what is going to happen in the next few days, whether they be about politics, whether they be about sports, whether they be about money, whether they be about our relations, any thought that we have is a distraction. So we need to learn the technique of being able to deal with those thoughts, to get to a state of no thoughts. And this is where taking our attention away from the world outside, using the energies of the mind not to send thoughts to us but to focus our attention on God, are the techniques which are used in practically all of these mechanisms. And so as we close our eyes, mentally we start to repeat God's name. Now as we do that, in the beginning we will still have thoughts, but with time and practice, and this is where we do little every day. Little could be 30 minutes, it could go to 45 minutes, it could go to an hour, 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Slowly we build up the time for which we are meditating every day. And so it's a building block. It's our foundations being laid by the ethical virtues, and the building block of one brick at a time is happening. So every day as we meditate, we're doing a little bit today, a little bit more tomorrow, a little bit more tomorrow, a little bit more tomorrow. And we are going to get to a state where we would be closing our eyes and not be thinking about anything which will distract us, and all our attention will be right in front of us. And it is then that the divine creative power will unfold for us. We'll start to experience flashes of light, circles of lights. We'll be hearing celestial music within ourselves, and as we connect with the divine light and sound of God, then we get transported into a spiritual region. With help and guidance, we can go beyond the physical. And as we go on the spiritual journey, the joy and the love and the peace that we experience stays with us not only for the time that we meditate, but for long periods afterwards. And so as we find that peacefulness within ourselves, as we find that calmness within ourselves, then we are radiating that to others. So the key to finding peace in the world, to finding harmony in the world, to finding joy in the world, is to be peaceful ourselves, is to be in harmony with the divine ourselves, is to be joyous ourselves. And all of those are found when we put our attention within ourselves, because God is within. God is the source of all joy. God is the source of all peace. God is the source of all harmony. And so as we focus our attention within, then little by little, we are able to get to that monumental job of finding the oneness with God. So it all happens by taking little steps. And so if we remember little by little, we definitely will be able to get to our goals. So let us meditate for a few minutes. Please sit as comfortably as you can. This technique that I'm going to talk about is called SOS meditation. It's a Science of Spirituality meditation technique. It's a very simple technique. Anyone can practice this, whether you're a young person, whether you're a centenarian, everyone can practice this technique because it does not require us to be in any special physical pose. We can sit as comfortably as we can. We close our eyes gently, just like we close them when we go to sleep. Our eyeballs should be straight, focus 8 or 10 inches in front of us. And as we close our eyes, to still our mind, we repeat a name of God. Those of you who have been initiated in the mysteries of the beyond, please do your Simran. And those of you who are new here, please repeat any name of God that you feel comfortable with. So this repetition of God's name should be done mentally and not out loud. And if you don't believe in God, then you can repeat any name that gives you peace, that gives you calm, which makes you loving. As you repeat this name of God, you will find that light will sprout forth in front of you. It could be flashes of light, it could be circles of light, lights could be of various colors. Just focus in the middle of your experience and many other vistas will open up for you. I pray to God Almighty and to the three great masters of the past century, Hazur Baba Sawan Singh Ji Maharaj, Param Sant Kripal Singh Ji Maharaj, and the gracious master Sant Rajinder Singh Ji Maharaj, to help each and every one of us connect with the divine power within and to experience the divine light of God in its effulgence. We'll be sitting for a few minutes. I'll be getting you out of this meditative state, and my best wishes are with each and every one of you. please leave off. छोड़ दीजिए जी.